Good afternoon. Is this working? Yes. Not really. It's okay. It's better if it's not. Thank you so much, Amine, for your presentation. We are Silvana from Colombia, Luca VILELA from Brazil, and Jonas from Germany. And we'll be continue to discussing your topic. This is development versus environment, large-scale infrastructure projects, and urban planning. So this is a very brief outline. We have introduction, case studies, same as yours, same idea. Then we do the dilemma, questions, and references. So to start with the introduction, we're just going to go very briefly again through the basics of the debate, which is the development versus environment. We know that there is an undeniable need to develop infrastructure. We need it. We need to build roads, bridges, public transport, hospitals, schools, because these projects actually improve people's quality of life. And they create jobs, they boost the economy, and they provide essential services to communities. But there is an unintended ecological damage from the construction of these projects. And this often becomes a heavy burden for certain social groups, that they actually restrict community rights, displace populations, and rarely leads to economic growth. So basically, this raises the issue of gender equality and equity, social equality, and equity. Thinking about gender, always. And what we wanted to say is to acknowledge who actually enjoys the benefits from development and who actually paid its cost. So for this to go in another perspective, Luca will show us a...
Amazing. So I like that you talked about circularity in the end, because I will bring this, and I think it has a relation to it. We put it as a question, development versus environment, because as you showed, there's lots of evidence and literature that shows that environment and development, they are ideologically counterposed in many moments, but they should not be. And well, I think this is, like, the Brazilians in the room will know this, but this is one of the most famous Brazilian poems of the 20th century, and it is precisely about that, about this circularity that exists in this contradiction between both dimensions. It's called In the Middle of the Road, and it's simply a poem about the stone that's in the middle of the road. So, like, it's called In the Middle of the Road, and it repeats itself, and what we would like to show with this is that, like, maybe this repetition, in the middle of the road there was a stone in the middle of the road, like it's just a simple poem about the stone, but it became very controversial in Brazilian developmentist debate in the 60s and the 70s, and it had many reactions from the public, from big companies, against a simple poem talking about a stone. So I think that the idea is that maybe this stone, that's a simple natural element on a road, it could symbolize this dualism, circularity that positions development against the environment, perpetuating a bit like a kind of a tautology between both that just serves the interests of certain groups. And we will bring case studies as well to show how this unfolds in the concrete terrain. So, well, the first case study that I will present you is a village called Miritituba in the state of Pará, where the COP30 is happening right now. So actually, Miritituba is not a city, it's a district of another municipality called Itaituba, which is located here close to Santarém in the north of Brazil. And what is happening in this region now is that we have a railway and a highway. And it reminded me a bit of your project, because the railway is going to be built close to the highway. I will begin a little bit with the history of the highway. It was constructed in the 70s under the Brazilian military dictatorship. In 76, it was inaugurated, and it has been unpaved until 2016-17, when the Brazilian army, together with the Brazilian government, they resumed the final paving works of this highway called BR-163. And it was paved till Miritituba, till this city, till this municipality of Itaituba in Pará in 2020. So it's a recent project, and it has a relation to the railway that I will show in the next slide. So what happens is that there is this state, MT, is Mato Grosso. It's one of the main soy-producing states in Brazil. And the highway, it goes from the north of Mato Grosso to Pará and to the municipality of Santarém and Itaituba, which is on the map, and of which Miritituba takes part. So what happens is that it's approximately 1,000 kilometers of a corridor forming the northern export corridor of grains in Brazil. And well, now there is a big project from the Brazilian government to make a public offer to kind of sell the administration of this highway together with the construction of the railway, which is planned. Yeah, and the economic argument in favor of that railway, which is in parallel to the highway that already exists, is that it would reduce the cost and travel time for soy, corn, and livestock exports, and also reduce emissions, because today the grains are exported mainly through big trucks, and they would go in the railway. So, yeah, could you just move to the next? Thank you. And what I would like to show is that this project had a huge impact on the municipality of Miritituba. That's the focus of that graph. It shows that when the paving of the highway was finished in 2018, between 2018 and 2020, it created an economic incentive to transform this town in a soy exporting town. And this massively growing of the soy exports had a huge impact on the city. And it has a kind of a imbalanced impact, because we have very rapid unplanned urban growth with a lot of violence, a lot of prostitution, lots of problems that this unplanned infrastructure brings with itself. And I just counterposed this very locally focused map with a more broader map to show the Brazilian exports corridor, because that's all about the economic planification debate that, well, maybe this project makes sense for a certain group of soy producers, but if we look at the whole Brazilian national space, maybe there are other export routes that could be better to incentive. Compared to that railway, which is just the cheapest and the best for a certain group, but that imposes this over a lot, many different interests of other groups, like indigenous populations which are suffering a lot. There are like 6 indigenous lands, more than I think 6, 7 national parks threatened by that railway, and it's been a huge question also at the COP and the protests that are happening at the COP.
Okay, to continue in line into the Global South cases, we have Hidroituango. Hidroituango is Colombia's largest hydroelectric power. The dam is located on the Cauca River. This is the country's second most important river. It's surrounded about 130,000 people that depend on the livelihood from it. The project is led mainly by public companies of Medellin. And it has an estimated cost of $4 billion USD, which make it the most expensive engineer project in the country's history. Its main purpose was to generate about 17% of the country's electricity demand, which is a milestone in the country's energy generation. So this is just like a basic for you to know what is the project about. Then we have here a timeline, which from the beginning of the project to the construction, which I'm going to focus mainly on 2 dates. 2010, which was when the construction officially began, and the Living Rivers movement was born. This is a movement that was led by local activists. It is still today, and they are condemning the ecological damage and the violation to human rights that the people that's been facing because of the project. In 2018, a serious construction emergency caused uncontrolled water levels, and that leads to sudden risks of flooding. It was very important in the history of Colombia. More than 9,000 people had to be evacuated. The region, there were several municipalities affected. The region was in a red alert for more than a month, and many people lose their homes in this event. Because of this, the National Authority of Environmental License suspended Hidroituango environmental license. Still, the project kept ongoing, and in 2025, they get the license back. Today, the construction remains to be concluded, and they are still facing a problem to reach their capacity of energy generation. So now that we have understand what the project is about and the timeline, we are going to the core of the debate, which is the development view versus the environment view. The development view in the case of Hidroituango had 3 main aspects. The first one was energy sovereignty. of course, Colombia depends 70% of its energy comes from hydroelectric power. So this gives a very important position for the country. The fact that Hidroituango exists is also a clean alternative. Water production, as the World Bank and many other organizations acknowledge, it is a sustainable energy source when social, environmental, and safeguards are applied. And finally, we have regional economic development, which is the most common argument. Hidroituango was framed as a growth pole for economy in the region. This is a quote for the Africa Competitiveness Report, where the World Bank actually acknowledged that for developing countries, the balance for growth and competitiveness is likely to come from improvements in infrastructure, critical investment, and policy coordination. And Hidroituango showed that in Colombia. Hidroituango generated more than 8,000 employees, jobs in the region, and by 2023, it earned around $200 million USD because of its operation. Now we have the vision of sustainability for the Hidroituango case. Also 3 main factors. We have displacements of river communities, environmental damage, and human rights and defender safety. For the first 2, the dam needed to float some areas in order to the dam to be built. And that means that many communities that were living there will lose the way that they were living. And there's this interesting paper with the World Bank and Michael Cerna that acknowledge that during massive forced displacements, many risks can be held into communities. Of course, all of them were present in Hidroituango. More than 2,000 families were displaced from their lands, more than 12,000 animals died, and more than 2,000 hectares of virgin forests were destroyed through the construction. And probably the most important and difficult part is the human rights and defender safety, because also our national context, people were killed or threatened from both the construction parties or from armed actors opposing to the community reorganizing. There is this very interesting term that develops from a very well-known paper. I think it's global warming for inequality communities, something like that. I don't remember the name exactly. But basically the concept established how struggles of poor or indigenous people against deforestation, dams, or mining always ended up facing violence. And of course, this was the case of Hidroituango. Since the start of the Hidroituango project, more than 100 activists from the Living Rivers movement has been murdered, and more than 2,000 have disappeared. This is not only Hidroituango case, and this is important. In Colombia, each year, more than 150 people die because of being social activists. So now that we have get into our global South cases, it's time that we acknowledge the dilemma, and Jonas will guide us through that.
Yeah, we kind of follow the same structure as you did in your presentation. We first present case studies that are shocking and interesting, and then we come with the theory. So that's my part now. I'm gonna outline very briefly 2 dimensions of this conflict between ecology and infrastructure, one material dimension and one a procedural dimension. And of course I cannot go into all the details because we have that time constraint, but if you want to know more, I also did a brief literature review on all these topics, which was for me very helpful, and if you like to read into it, you are welcome to do that. So let's first talk about the material dimension. There have been 2 leading paradigms in the science of ecology that were very influential for urban planning. And the first paradigm, which was dominant for quite some time, like the entire time after World War II, was the so-called equilibrium paradigm in ecology, which basically said that nature is just a stable system no matter what human action does. So like nature will always regenerate, so we can do whatever we want and we don't really have to pay attention to nature. And that gave birth to the paradigm in urban planning, which is called modernism, which implies that you just like try to optimize every infrastructural system separately from one another. I think that's also something that you mentioned in your presentation, right? That you, for example, try to optimize the transport infrastructure, and then completely disattached from that, you try to optimize energy infrastructure. And of course, you do that all in a very industrialized way. Okay, but then we had a shift, a paradigm shift in ecology that led to the introduction of the so-called non-equilibrium paradigm, which basically says exactly the opposite, that ecology is an open, complex system that is very much influenced and also to some extent driven by human action. And of course, that has implications for urban planning as well, because we cannot just continue to do modernism as we did before, but we have to understand ecology and infrastructure as an integrated complex system that can only be approached in a very holistic way. And the paradigm in urban planning that arose from that, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's the dominant paradigm today, but yeah, it still exists, is the paradigm of sustainable urban development. And like you can, for example, think of all these sub-disciplines of sustainable urban planning that are linked to the concept of ecosystem services, nature-based solutions. So where you have all these synergies, where you kind of mitigate the conflict between infrastructure and ecology by reaping the benefits from synergies between ecology and infrastructure. Another interesting point is that, like, when you acknowledge this non-equilibrium paradigm, you also have to change the goals that you try to reach in urban planning, because you don't have the opportunity to just optimize systems. You also need to be flexible, and you also need to create spare capacity, because you cannot plan. The future is uncertain, and you might have the necessity to create a system that shows some resilience as well. Okay, so as we see, we see nothing. Okay, no, we see something. All right, so there are certain dimensions of this conflict that can be mitigated on a material level, but of course there are also certain dimensions that cannot be mitigated, as pointed out by all the case studies that we've heard so far. And that brings me to the second dimension, which is the procedural one. Because, like, somehow we have to ask ourselves, okay, how do we deal with these trade-offs, with these unresolvable conflicts? And that can only be done on a procedural level. And I just want to briefly introduce to you 3 approaches on how, on a procedural level, you could deal with these conflicts. First one is a very moderate one. There's like lots of research and a very broad literature about how you could improve stakeholder participation in infrastructural planning. And now, of course, the first question is, who is a stakeholder? I mean, there are very different definitions of who is a stakeholder. But basically, all this literature refers back to one very famous article by a guy called Arnstein, who has invented this ladder of public participation, where he identifies different levels of participation. So on the lower levels, you have basically a participation that is not really participation. It's kind of pseudo participation that only serves the purpose to, like, make people feel that they are included in decision making, but actually they are not. But then, as you move to higher steps, you can, for example, introduce new innovative methods of inclusion, social media, artificial intelligence, whatever. There are also guys who try to build models on how you could optimize decision making and make it as inclusive as possible. You know, economists like to build models, so that has been done here as well. But I mean, one problem remains. Even if you move to very high levels of this ladder, you could still argue that, okay, maybe stakeholders are still overrepresented that are already powerful and dominant in the public discourse. Or alternatively, people that are now involved in processes where they were not involved before, they could still be influenced by powerful interest groups and by hegemonic discourses. So this is, of course, a thought that is not our own, but like something that other people have thought about already. And especially like in the German climate movement, but also like all these movements that are attached to this A22 network, they came up with the idea of being more serious about this procedural level and maybe introducing something like citizen assemblies, where members are just drawn from random samples, so to avoid perpetuation of dominant power structures. And then the idea is to create some kind of ideal Habermasian speech situation where you try to deconstruct power relations as much as possible. But of course, there might be still the problem if we think about like post-structuralist philosophers like Michel Foucault here in France. These guys would still argue, okay, as long as we use language and as long as we use terms, then we still have power relations enshrined in these means of communication. So we cannot avoid that. We cannot create this Habermasian ideal speech. And that finally leads to the most radical procedural concept, in my opinion, that is based on the theory of this guy, Henri Lefebvre.
Lefebvre.
Right, thank you. Yeah, who basically says, okay, if we want to have any chance, we need to change the system. So, I mean, we can make citizen assemblies, but as long as like there's this alienation of people who inhabit places and other people who own them, we cannot mitigate this conflict. So that is basically going into the direction that you were already also pointing towards. So his idea is like to somehow form coalitions to just overcome the system, and I think there I don't have really much to say about. You already said everything that needs to be said about that. So I will let it here and go to our questions.
This is our 3 questions that we prepared for you. Basically, the first one is how could affected communities truly participate in decision making for projects that are already politically and financially established from your perspective as an activist your own? Because it's been clear in the cases that we study or the cases that we just present that there was never that communication, even if it was intended to happen. They were never listened, they were never there. The second one is that if there is a realistic way for developing countries to pursue large-scale infrastructure projects without sacrificing environmental and social integrity, this is because it is this pressure in global south countries specifically that we must do everything green and we must do infrastructure with the right way, and we pursue that, but we may not have the means to do that because of our own circumstances. So that's the question. And the third one is a bottom-up federalism, centralism, and is what we can learn from different regulative systems, especially from the comparison between Europe versus China, which is now a leading and a country that we have not discussed and that we should. And other than that, you have our references, and thank you so much.
The floor for 5 to 10 minutes. Maybe you can go.
Thank you very much.
We take the break after the answer.
Well, thank you so much. I didn't even know that there is this trend in the literature, that there is this dilemma between modernism, sustainable urban development. Okay, things I'm talking about, but happy to learn that they have a name. So, what I really liked in your presentation is that it's something that was a bit absent on my presentation, is that the opposition between different dimensions of the sustainable and social issues, because the project I'm fighting against in the south of France is obviously absurd in all the social and ecological dimensions, so it's really easy to bring some opposition against. But in the case of developing countries, in the case of some project with social positive impacts but harming the environment and or the rivers, what you prefer, there is a tension that has to be solved and it's very complicated, and different framework exist. So I can give you some reference about that. I remember it was some references that I always remember about this because they are very remarkable. This is the IPCC report, and one report specifically is the report of the 1.5 degrees. You know, they have this specific report on the 1.5 degrees. I think this is 2018. I'm not sure, and it's the chapter 5. And in the chapter 5 of the 1.5 IPCC report, there is a ranking of all the sustainable, let's say, that means in the report low carbon energy technology, but the ranking is not about carbon, it's specifically about all the other sustainable development goals. So they ranked basically all the low carbon technology on all the others criteria present in the SDG and no climate change. Okay, and it's you learn a lot from this table because they have this ranking. It lasts a few pages, and you learn that, for example, the nuclear power plant, the nuclear energy, has a very bad rank because of the very weak appropriation possibility by developing countries, the big capital you have to invest at the beginning, the time that has to be built before have a positive climate impact, and you have and the non-democratic process because generally the nuclear industry is very centralized and vertical, and you learn a lot of things with this. So chapter 5 of the 1.5 degrees report. And another report is IPCC also, but not alone. It's the featuring between the IPCC and the IPBES. There was a co-sponsor workshop between them in 2021, and the report is very interesting again because you learn a lot about the impacts, social and ecological, of some low carbon technology, and for example the hydrological power plant, like how is it the name, Hydrotango, because honestly, when I was in my curriculum of on my way to become an engineer, I was like, okay, I even worked for EDF on a hydrological power plant, and I was convinced that this is the more clean, the cleanest way we have to fight climate change. It's low carbon, it's easy to command and stuff, but the problem is that first you have to have mountains, but another problem that harms the environment is for biodiversity is a disaster, and I didn't know that. I really didn't know that because it changed the flows of the water in the river, and so the structure of the river changed. But there are a lot of biodiversity and ecosystemic interaction on the bed of the river. So yeah, there is so it's a bad translation. The bed of the river is the river course. Thank you, and all the ecosystem around. And so there is this report, IPCC featuring IPBES in 2021, that is really important to have in mind. And it shows that even if you consider only two planetary boundaries, climate change and biodiversity, you have like a big problem with choosing a proper and a clean energy technology for generate the energy of an entire country. So I take my risk, and I will be more affirmative, saying that I think that it puts a big question. It puts a big question on the usefulness and the efficiency of big energy generation infrastructure in solving the environmental issues. And I'm not sure anymore that even if it's low carbon, like nuclear, hydrological power plant and stuff, I'm not sure that they are the best solution for the environmental transition. At least the energy transition, maybe yes, but we don't want an energy transition. We want a sustainable world, so it's not the same thing. The question, where are the questions? Okay, it's okay. So maybe it was for the second question, this. I don't know what is the realistic way, but what I can say is that I'm not sure anymore that big infrastructure for energy generation is a realistic way to have a sustainable world. It's the only thing I want to risk with this question. And another, maybe on the more on the financial and economic side, because when I was working in the climate division of the United Nations, my manager just said to me, "Okay, I think we are roasted. It's finished. We will lose the fight against climate change." I was like, "Why?" Because I just learned. He told me, "I just learned that the African president are just working together before the COP, just to put an agreement on the table that they will exploit the oil and the gas they have, because they have to make the people go out of poverty and stuff." And the Occidental world has just done it, so they will do it also. And I was like, this is a negotiation. The other president will say it's not a good idea. But he told me, but the other president won't have any legitimacy to say that. So we are roasted. And he told me, okay, I think there is one pathway is that the other president, like the come from the north and stuff, will come and say, okay, I understand we did that, it's bad, sorry. I understand you have to do that, okay, but maybe it's not a good idea for anyone. And to justify that we have something to say about your way of developing your country and your power generation infrastructure, we will finance it. So we will give our opinion, but not in a colonial framework, but as a co-owner of the it's not a good word, but as the financer, as the mécène of the infrastructure, and we will borrow the money, give the money, have a financial flow from the north to the south to finance the energy infrastructure, and we'll put some footnote on maybe the better choice. And spoiler, is not the way COP are working, but I think this is the only pathway to have this. Okay, and for the first question, what is that? How cool affect the community to participate? Yeah, it's a really good question. I'm afraid that when we build the alternative project for the A69 and we even won a prize for the French ecological ministry, I'm afraid we proved that it is not possible for the people to be involved, because we did what no any other local groups did. Like we did everything, like the trials, the professional quality alternative project with a professional urbanist, with scientists, with engineer, all volunteering for this project, and even in this kind of situation, no listening from the state, no listening from anyone. Even the president of the region in the south of France, I came to her and I say, okay, we did not communicate about the alternative project at this time, and I said, I will give it to you, and you can pretend it's yours. Because I'm sure that it is really revolutionary. You will have a good political communication with this. You will act as ecological leaders and stuff. And I said to her, to Carol Delga, we give it to you. We just want it instead of the highway. And she said, no, it's not a good. I don't care, because these people are not interested in the ecological. So I'm afraid that we just proved that even doing this, it's not possible to be listened. Let's answer in a utopic world where the decision making from the bottom is possible. I think the one feature the structure of this consultation has to have is that it has to begin from the bottom, just asking the people what they need. Because it's what we did, and it's like let's say the feedbacks on this project are really positive from the scientists, from everyone, and so we achieved to build that just because we asked the people, and I think there is a tension between, and this is a classic theoretical tension between federalism à la Murray-Bookchin or centralization with an ecological planning coming from the top to the bottom and stuff. But I think that for some subjects, if you need to know what the people need, if you manage to know it, asking them in each territory, and you try to build a synthesis between these needs, maybe you will find an optimum. And it could be true for the transportation. That is an issue that it's much bigger than just a little territory, and it could be more efficient to have train lines and stuff. So building a synthesis of the needs of each territory could be a great beginning, I think. And the last one, really, I don't know.
5-minute break only, and we come back and you ask your question. Short?
Yeah, it's like 30 seconds. Before we start with the question, we'd just like to thank you for the presentation, also express our solidarity as a group, because we know you're facing a trial next week. So yeah, we knew that you're facing this trial, and we wish you good luck. And yeah, if we can support you as a group or as EPOC, I don't know, as students. We are here for you, and let us know.
Thank you. So questions? Yes.
Hello, my name is Luca. I'm from Brazil. Thank you for your presentation and for your work. So I'm gonna maybe build up a little bit more on the question of the other Luca, because adding to the case of Pará, where they're building this big highway during the government of Bolsonaro, during the Bolsonaro administration, they also decided to build one of the biggest railway projects after the redemocratization of Brazil, and also one of the biggest ports in Latin America. And all of this, it's because in the city of Cana dos Carajás, it's in the middle of the forest, or also for a lot of people in the middle of nowhere. They found the fourth biggest bauxite, I don't know how do you, yes, what they use to make aluminium. Yeah, in the world. And so aside from the soil route, we also have this a lot of multinational companies coming, or mining companies coming to the region to extract these minerals. So my question would be, in the case of Pará, how do you expand this activism to this cross-border colonialist pressure, especially because the region is not densely populated, so you don't have locals that have too big of a voice to express their discontent with what's happening in the area, right? And also in the case of like national, we can't go to Brasilia and complain with our local government, because it's also a matter of colonialism, right? We can't, in the end, it's also the companies from the north coming here to essentially extract those minerals, right? So how do we achieve this? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Elu and I'm from Austria, and I have several questions. First, could you give us the name of the urban planner that's designing the alternative infrastructure ideas? Because I couldn't find it. And then I have questions about the movement, the Soulèvement de la Terre. Do you see that the way they're organized, that sometimes when the local actions end, that the people active in the local actions stay in the more bigger movement and join other actions or create more? Like, do you see it as an incentive to kind of keep activists in the loop? And at the same time, having a little bit of experience with broad alliances, I feel like there's always also people that are there protecting the land, but out of maybe other reasons and more nationalist ideologies. And I don't know, have you come across things like that? And if yes, like how are they handled? Repeat the last one. Yeah, I don't know. The problem with broad alliances, that you said that it's all about protecting the land. And sometimes some people want to protect the land, but like out of more nationalist ideologies, and also bringing that to the table and kind of watering the movement down maybe, and how those people are handled, and if they even if this is even a problem.
Hi, my name is Marlene. I'm also from Austria. Thank you for the interesting presentation. I feel like there's many, in every country there is an example like this where they want to build a horrible highway, and we also have one in Austria. And we also had a lot of resistance against it, but then also now they want to build it nevertheless. But my question would be regarding the fact that you repeated several times that it's really important to have the public opinion on your side. And I know that you said like that you were really like interacting with the locals and talking to them, so that was like one of the channels. But I was wondering also about like how did you really keep these channels alive with like the public opinion? Did you feel like the classical media kind of supported you, or did you were also on your side, or like how did this communication really play down, and how do you keep the public opinion once you have it over a longer period of time?
Hi, I'm Luis. I am from Frisia, which is the north of Germany on the North Sea, and we have also a very similar case, which is like a coast highway that they are building now, and we had similar alliances. We also have an illegal highway that was built, and now it's there, but it's illegal and was never like approved, but they can't build it back and so on. And my interest would be in like the direction of the farmers and how you were able to cooperate with them, because there are different motivations from the farmers always, and it really differs on the areas what's like the method you can use or the talking points you use to overcome this like environmental and labor conflict. And is it more about the farmers don't want to have their land taken away that will become the highway? Or in our case, the problem is that the land becomes unusable on both sides of the highway, because water will get stuck on one side and the land will be too wet, and on the other side it will be too dry. And we are super close to the sea, so a lot of land is already below sea level today, like not because of climate change, but where the land is. So that would be my question. When it's about land usage, it's also about a capitalistic idea of the farmers again, and how can you embed that into the movement? Is there an idea that you could like also implement in the farmers, or like spark this idea in the farmers of something else than industrial agriculture and so on? I would be really interested in that, and thank you for the input.
Okay. And if your answers are not too long, we will have a few more questions.
One second, back question. About the density. Oh, so first time, thank you very much for the word at the beginning. I'm really it's really important at the moment for me. So thank you very much. The density of the area, yeah, it could be an issue because for organizing with locals, you have to have locals, of course. But in our case, it's not so much about the number of the locals, but their presence. And even if you don't have so much locals, you can have this image. Remember that the goal is the readability. So you can have this picture of your local struggle as let's say an anti-colonial or an anti-imperialist fight, and you bring much support from the outside of the territory, just by bringing this picture of the David contre Goliath, David against Goliath image. And also, to answer at the same time another question, the organization of big dates with a lot of people coming from all over the country to have this big mobilization against to occupy the road for one day and stuff, could shed light on the project, so the locals can be involved. Because generally, when we were talking about the locals in the villages around the A69, there are not so big villages around the villages around are like few hundreds inhabitants, so it's not so much. But generally, they didn't even know what was happening. And you know, the public consultation that is mandatory in France was made July, August, without communication. It was a lie. It's a lie. There is no environmental democracy. So we had to bring the environmental democracy in the territory to meet the people and to say to them, okay, there is this project and stuff. And one way to do that, so because also we really like concretely went to talk to them on the little market on the Sunday with the agriculture, the farmers and stuff. But also one way to reach them is the organization of this big mobilization, because generally, and it's another original and creative move from the Soulèvement de la Terre, is that this big mobilization with dozens of hundreds of people are really not common for the rural areas. Generally, it's in urban places, in Paris and stuff, it's common. But in rural areas, it's not common. And the people, and to have this big mobilization, really creative, really, we were almost partying. You know, the picture I showed you, it was really joyful. It was really caring for the land, for and the people get involved also because they were they are not terrorists. They are not. I don't know these people coming in my in my land, but generally there is no anyone here. There is no activity. There's nothing. And now there are people like making a party on the road, on the land that has to be destroyed. I didn't even know that. So and these big dates are also intended to be like a platform for the locals and other ideas around the country that are traveling with the people, you know, coming with their big IPCC report, facts and their Marxism ideas and stuff. And all these people can meet on these big dates and these big movements. And one thing I didn't speak about because I didn't have time is the joyful and the caring atmosphere in the mobilization of les Soulèvements de la Terre. So there are not just moments of fight, there are moments of care and party and stuff. And the creativity and the humor used by the Soulèvements de la Terre to ridiculize the enemy, to have love at him, it's really important. It's really important to have the public opinion with you. So the answer just for the density is not so much a problem per se, because generally for the A69 right now there are no hundreds of people living on the way to protesting. But if you repeat this we processed with a calendar, like in 2 months there is a big date, and once it is passed, in 2 months there is another big date, and we can show that the balance of power is maintaining. And so the people living there feel, even if they are not so much, feel they are not so numerous, they can feel that they have the country behind them. Because one day, if the project begins, they can call for the country to come. And this is how in Notre-Dame-des-Landes the airport was abandoned and the government gave up. Because one day, they just it was becoming famous, the little ZAD against the big airport and the French state. And one day they say, okay, the construction will begin, we need you. And it was really, really surprising. But this day, 40,000 of people came from all the countries. With you cannot even imagine the scene. It was like some farmers bringing some material construction to construct the little cities to avoid the government construction of the airport. It was very crazy. Like farmers, like people coming from everywhere, internationalist people. So the problem is not the density continuously every day, but the fact that you are famous and you can bring this density when you did it. the name of the urbanist is Karim Layani. I can write it maybe. I think I have some. Ah. And I will give the contact to David so he can invite him for another epoch seminar, because he has a really radical and philosophical approach of urbanism. He's very strong. So I think it is that. Yeah, so big dates, I already answered. I think it was the question. The purpose of this big dates are the big mobilization we organized, where all the countries invited and are really important to bring this support from the outside of the territory, while having the legitimacy to defend the territory, because the local first is the and sometimes it was conflictual, because on some action we had this kind of radical people coming from I don't know even where, and they wanted to hit the installation and to like burn some beginning construction, and the locals say, okay, no, because it's not the moment. They didn't feel it, because it was the beginning. They didn't feel they have the built this big public opinion support for the moment, so they didn't feel it, and so it has been respected, and the other like anarchist people coming from all over the country just respected this, and the philosophy of but it was conflictual. Like there was this very tense discussion, like we didn't come to just walk peacefully, like yeah, there is this tension, but the philosophy of the Soulèvement de la Terre is local first, and if there is this radicality coming, generally it has to be approved by the locals, and these big mobilization are not organized by other people, but the locals. It was the land. The fascist vision of the land appropriation. The difference with the fascist vision is that we defend the land against the appropriation of capitalism. In a way, the local can enjoy the land and can manage it the way they want. So the fascist vision isn't that. The fascist vision is we pretend to have a natural territory since decades, so we can have an argument to fight the strangers. It's the other way around, and it's quite easily to defend, I think, and to not be confounded with the fascist ideas, is just to say that the land is, and there is a tension with private property, I agree, but the land belongs to the one that are living on it. It's just the way Soulèvement de la Terre built their approach. It's based on at the root of it there is the anti-colonial fight, and it explains also why Soulèvement de la Terre is one of the few organizations that are also taking a stance on Palestine topics and other topics, because this is the same thing at the end. This is an appropriation. So yeah, there is a tension, I agree, but I think it could be solved saying that the land belongs to the one living on it, and also it has to be decided collectively. Like the fascist idea is that it's our, like it's an appropriation, and the Soulèvement de la Terre vision is against appropriation for the collective decision. So this is the other way around for me. Really easy to defend, I think. How to keep the public opinion with you? I don't remember. It's you, because really complicated because sometimes, and no, not sometimes, always, we have this news and even in I think it's the same everywhere, but in France we have these billionaires owing all the medias and stuff. And generally, when I fight on the media, because this is a fight in the news and on TV, what is quite easy is that the arguments we face are really poor, like really poor. Like when sometimes, you know, I did some argumentation. I had a talk on a TV show, but because this is no public information anymore, this is a TV show about the highway and the ecology in general. And it was like a little buzz on internet, and everyone on the ecological movement said, "Oh, you are very clever. You talk very well." I was nothing. I was like doing nothing. I was just asking questions to the journalist. Like, okay, you said this. Why? You said that the representative of the territory in the south of France are for the project and not against. How much? How many people? How many representatives? And he cannot answer. So it's not journalism. It's like propaganda, and it's in a sense very, very easy to contradict. And just with my few numbers and just with my few questions and just talking very kind to the journalist, everyone was like, "Oh wow, this is a TV show. Like this is he's the only one knowing the topic." And you know, also because in France we faced a big repression. Like my first answer is that just knowing the topic is enough to win any debate on this kind of TV show, like, because they don't know nothing. They are just against this like ecological radicalism. They don't even try to define. It's really easy. We have the scientists with us. Also, what is important with the public opinion is that we just bring to the opposition of the highway the scientists, the health professionals, the locals, okay, but also we have like a parents association, because they discovered that there is this building just aside the school of their children. It's very dirty, and they are no radical at all. But now they are beginning to say, I hate the state, I hate the police. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. But because they just realize this is the genius move of the Soulèvement de la Terre. You are not talking to people. You not come to the people with your volume 1, Karl Marx, you are exploited and stuff. You are telling to the people something very concrete. Yeah, this is your land, this is your garden, this is that is becoming stolen by some capitalist company, and there is one that it just want this highway in the south of France just to accelerate the flows of commodities until Toulouse, because in Toulouse there is an airport and it can like becoming international. So this is clear. This is crystal clear. And it's your land is becoming stolen by a capitalist company. It's organized by the state, because the states send the police to defend the company even when it's illegal to build. And the people are like radicalizing. So from my side, to have a different topic, you are not just for the ecological protection of the area. You are not just against the expensiveness of the way between Toulouse and Castres. You are just against the land to be stolen by the states, and the people are like, oh yes, it's true, and diversify the topics. You know, health is a good thing. Health for me is a really good thing. That people are not engaged, committed in any mobilization or organizing and stuff, but they are very engaged in their health and the one of their children and stuff. And the last one is the farmers. The farmers is quite complicated, because in France we have a right-wing union that is instrumentalizing. It's the same. I see faces like, yes, it's the same everywhere. You know, the capitalist project, absurd, we don't need them. It's the same everywhere. So I really believe in this approach of the Soulèvement de la Terre. And the farmers, generally, you have these right-wing unions, instrumentalizing the environmental law to say to the farmers, your situation is because activists are asking for environmental laws, and you're poor because you don't have time to respect these things, you need chemicals, you need and stuff. But really, I don't think the farmers are really believing this. They are following a movement. This is a sociology problem. Like the farmers in France are following a movement. This is the first union in France, so they just following. They are just following it, but they don't even believe in the. They don't even know what this union is doing. And generally, the farmers we just achieve to bring with us. We are very pragmatic, like I don't want this road aside of my home and stuff, and you touch one, you can touch others, and this is really quickly with farmers because they are not so much, but they have a very strong power because everyone respects them. So they consist in a. This is a nodal you have to reach if you want to protect your land. The answer of how to do that, it's complicated because it depends of the sociology of the farmers we are talking about. I know it from for France. I don't know in your area, but generally they are involved in the health of their land. Again, the health is another topic. Don't come to a farmer with the IPCC report. So yeah, this the answer I can give.